Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf, which is Eruvin Tzadik Tes. We are 2 lines from the top of the Amid. Ubelvad shelo yotzi chutz me'arba amis. The Mishnah told us a person can stand in Rosh Hashanah and be metaltel a chayfetz in Rosh Hashanah, provided that he doesn't transfer it out of 4 amis. Says the Gemara, ha hoitzi chayav chatas. Apparently, should he do so, he would be liable to chatas. Now, Rashi says that we're speaking also in the following case, where he's standing up on an elevated area, up on a rooftop, let's say, and leaning down to Shesharam below and transferring an item, moving around the chayfetz. The Mishnah here indicates that should he go ahead and transfer it 4 amis in Shesharabim, he would be chayav chatas even, let's say he decides to pick up the chayfetz, to bring it up to where he's standing. So he lifts it up beyond the airspace of Rosh Hashanah and places it back down in Rosh Hashanah. So he lifted it off to Rosh Hashanah, placed it back down 4 amis away, but he brought it through the airspace of Makom P'tur, a non-Rosh Hashanah airspace. Here as well, it would seem to sound from the Mishnah that he would be chayiv. Ha hoitzi chayav chatas. Should he go ahead and transfer this chayfetz past 4 amis? He's chayav chatas, even though he took it through the airspace of a Makom P'tur. So he lifted it up towards himself, taking it through the airspace of beyond the 10 tefachim of the Rosh Hashanah proper, which is a Makom P'tur, and then landed it back down Rosh Hashanah. He would still be chayiv. We ignore that intermediate stage. Since he lifted it off the Rosh Hashanah and placed it back down, that's what we reckon with. We consider it to be one continuous act. We ignore the fact that it traveled through Makom P'tur airspace. Leima Masayeh l'Rav. Apparently, this would be a right to Rava, who holds likewise that we ignore the airspace of Makom P'tur. Dama Rava Hamaver Chayfetz Mitchilas Arba L'Seif Arba. If a person is standing in Rosh Hashanah, picks a chayfetz off the ground, and is maver that chayfetz Mitchilas Arba L'Seif Arba, from point 0 up to point 4, Ve'viroi Derech Olav. And he actually brought the chayfetz above himself, meaning he carried it up high in the air through a Makom P'tur. Chayav. Why we ignore that middle stage? The fact of the matter is it never landed in a Makom P'tur. We learned this yesterday. There's no hanacha in an exempt area. So we ignore that middle stage. The fact is he picked it off the ground, put it back on the ground, he's chayav. This Mishnah seems to be a raya to Rav Shita. Says the Gemara, not necessarily. Miktani. Does the Mishnah really say im haitzi chayav chatas? Mishnah says, well, be careful. Don't transfer it more than 4 amis. Does the Mishnah really say that if he would do so, he'd be chayav chatas? Dilma, perhaps, im haitzi patar v'lasar. Should he do so? Yeah, it's asar midrabanan, because we're concerned that perhaps next time he'll transfer it 4 amis next to the ground within the Rosh Hashanah proper. But even if he actually does transfer in this manner, meaning he takes it above 10 tefachim, although there's an isser, but there's no chiyuv chatas. He's pater from chatas, aval asr, it's merely asr midrabanan. So we have no raya to Rava that we consider this to be an actual malacha. Ikeda Amri, there's another version of the Gemara. The Mishnah tells us you can stand in Shesayachid and move things around in Shesarabim, provided you are not moitzi chutz mi'arba amis. Ha haitzi pater v'lasar. Apparently, should he do so, he would be doing an issa d'Rabbanan, but there would be no chiyuv min atar. He would be pater aval asr. How does the Gemara know that the Mishnah means only there will be issa d'Rabbanan? So Ritva says because the Mishnah says ubelvad shelo yotzi. Make sure don't do it. Apparently, even if he would do it, it's only issa d'Rabbanan, because otherwise the Mishnah should have said clearly, should he do so, there would be a chiyuv chatas. So we imply from the Mishnah that there's only a chiyuv when there is a d'Rabbanan. Leimetavet to the Rava. Apparently, there's a steer to Rava. It's inconsistent with Rava, the Amarava Hamaver Mitchilas Dalit. Let's say Dalit, the person standing in Rosh Hashanah, transfers a chayfetz from here to there, more than 4 amis, ve'vira derech olav chayiv, and he actually brings it above himself, meaning through airspace of Makom P'tur, he would be chayiv. Our Mishnah, which indicates that there's only a Issa D'Rabbanan, seems to be a refutation of Rava's Shita, Says the Gemara, not necessarily. Miktani hoitzi potar val aser. Does the Mishnah really say that if he would do so, it's only ism d'Rabbanan, but really he's potar from chatas? No. Dilma, perhaps im hoitzi chayiv chatas. Indeed, should he do so, he'd be liable to chatas, just as Rava told us. So again, Rava holds that if a person picks something off the ground, transfers it more than 4 amas in Shusarabim, even though he went through a makom p'tur, he took it derech olav, above himself, up high in the air, we ignore that. And we consider it to be one continuous act. The fact is, the akira was from the ground, the hanacha was back on the ground, and there was nothing to be mafsik, the masa. There was no hanacha in the makom p'tur, and therefore we consider this to be one masa, malacha of maver, dal damas b'shusarabim. Regarding our Mishnah, it's inconclusive. We don't need to have a raya one way or the other, whether or not there's a chiv chatas in this instance. Continues the Gemara, Layamad Adam Mishasayachad v'chulu. So Mishnah tells us a person shouldn't stand in Mishasayachad and be mashtin Mishasarabim, pass water to Mishasarabim. Likewise, he shouldn't spit to Mishasarabim. Rav Yosef Hishtim Barak Chayev Chatas. Should he do any one of these things, be mashtin, pass water, or spit out, discharge saliva to Mishasarabim, he's Chayev Chatas because he transferred this liquid from one rishus to the other. What do you mean? In order for it to be a masa hitzah, let's remember, there needs to be an akir and hanocha, using a surface area of chashivas, a makom chashiv, of a daled tfachim by daled tfachim. So the akira needs to be from a surface of daled tfachim. The hanocha needs to be by placing the thing on a surface of 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim, because the malach of hitzah entails taking an item from one area, placing it into another area. It needs to come from a makom chashiv of dal tfachim. It needs to be placed on a makom chashiv, which you don't have here. But don't we require akira v'hanacha, uprooting and placing down me'al gabi makom dalet from a place which has 4 tfachim? V'lek, in this case we don't have it, because when he is passing water, the me'raglayim is coming from an area which doesn't have a surface space of 4 by 4 tefachim. Likewise, when he spits, it's not coming from a makom dalet. Machshavtoi meshavi le'makom. His intent, the fact that he needs this to happen in this manner, he needs a liquid to be discharged from that very location, that grants prominence to the location. It gives it chashivas. We consider it now as though it is a makom of dalet tefachim. Because otherwise, how are you going to explain the following halacha? Rava told us like this: Zorak, if a person takes an item and throws it, v'nach b'fiyah kelev, and it landed in the mouth of a dog, or b'fiyah kivshon, or in the opening of a furnace, and was immediately incinerated, never landed on the bottom of the furnace. Chayev chatas, it's chayev chatas. What do you mean? V'be'inon hanocha al gabi makom dalet v'lek. Don't we need the hanacha to take place on a makom of dal tefachim? In this case, you don't have it. The mouth of the dog, the opening of the furnace, are not 4 tefachim. Ella, rather, you must say machshavtoi mishavi le'makom. His intent, his kavana, the fact that he finds purpose and reason in having his chayvitz land in that specific location, he has benefit from it. That gives it a prominence. It grants it chashivas, as though it is a makom of dal tefachim hachanami here as well. In our case, when he discharges these liquids from these specific locations in his body, machshava mishavi le'makom, his machshava gives it a din of makom. Let's see Rashi inside, which is 6 lines from the top of the Amid. It says Rashi, machshavta shu tzorach lekach, he needs it to be done in this manner, in this fashion. Mishavi lehoitzah hashuva grants it a status of a proper hoitzah, as we see in Rava's case. Zorak mitchilas dalos of dalat, so he's standing in Shusarab and he throws the food at a distance of 4 amis to have it land in the mouth of his dog, or he throws something b'fiyah kivshon shekolta shal heves v'nisrafa, and gets incinerated by the fire. He's chayiv. Why is that? There's no dalat tefachim. Teretz is because he wants it to be done in this manner. And as Tosfos points out in Divrei HaMaskal Mashavtoi, he says it's because he has benefit, he has anah from it being done specifically in this manner. He wants the food to land in the mouth of the dog so the dog can have it. He wants the item to land right in that fire so it gets burnt up And likewise, he wants the miraglaim or the roik to be discharged from that specific location of his body. There's no other way to do it. So in all these cases, since he has benefit, he has hana, he has personal gain from doing it in this specific manner, we consider it to be a proper hoitzah, a proper akira, a proper hanoch, as though the area has 4 tvachim. Continues the Gemara. Rav asked, what about the following case? Hu b'shus hayachid, upi ama b'shus harab mao. Let's say he's standing in shus hayachid, and the opening of his aver, where the meraglaim is discharged, is actually located inside Rishus Harab. Or as Mefarshim say, the same with the roik. He's standing in Rishus Hayachid, and his mouth is actually in Rishus Harab. So the point of exit, where the liquid exits his body, is actually in Rishus Harab Marei. Ma, what is the halacha here? Basar Akira Azlinan? Do we focus on the place where the liquid gathers and uproots, meaning from his actual body, which is in Rishus Hayachid? And in that case, there is a malacha taking place, because the akira is in Rishus Hayachid, and it's going to land in Rishus Harab. Or do we focus on the point of exit, where the liquid actually gets discharged from his body, which in this case is in Rishus Harab. So it begins in Rishus Harab, and it lands in Rishus Harab, and there's no malach, teiku, we leave it unresolved. So a quick summary here, we had the halacha in the Mishnah. A person shouldn't stand in one Rishus and discharge meraglaim or roik over to the other rishus. Whereas the akira me'al gabe mokim dalad, says the Gemara, because of his machshava, we give it prominence, and it's as though it left an area which has a surface of 4 tfachim. Rabbi concludes with a shaila. In the case where the pi amma is already rishus harab, do we focus on the exit point of the liquid, in which case there's no malacha, or do we focus back on the mokim akira, which is his body, where the liquid gathers and leaves? In this case, since the body is in Rishus Hayachid, and it ends up being transmitted into Rishus Harab, a malach has taken place, and we leave it teku. V'chein lo yoroik. Rabbi Da'omer, Rabbi tells us a chiddush that even if he should happen to be walking along the Rishus Harab, and he feels some roik in his mouth, some saliva which has gathered, which has separated itself, he shouldn't continue walking 4 amis until he discharges that saliva, because it's considered to be a load. Says the Gemara, afagav lehafechba. So you mean to say, as soon as the saliva separates itself in his mouth, it gathers, even though he didn't actually curl it up and indicate that he has begun the process of spitting it out, you already consider it to be a separate entity just by the mere fact that it gathers and it curls and it separates itself. Is already considered to be on its way out and considered to be a load? Is that the case? But we have a Mishnah in Kalim which seems to say otherwise. Mishnah says, if a person was eating a dried fig of truma with hands that were unclean, meaning they were unwashed, they have a din of sheni l'tumah, and if they should touch truma, they make it puzzle. So he was eating this fig, and he reached into his mouth, to pull out a pebble. Rabbi Meir mitame. Rabbi Meir says the fig has now become tamei due to the fact that there's saliva in his mouth, which came into contact with the fig, which made it huchshel lekabel tumah. It is now susceptible for tumah. And the fact that he touched the fig with his hand makes the fig tamei. So according to Rabbi Meir, one's saliva has a din of liquid, mashkin. So when that liquid comes into contact with fruit, it makes it hushel lekabel tumah. Rabbi Yosi Matar, he says just the opposite. Saliva in one's mouth doesn't have a status of liquid and doesn't have the ability to be maksha fruit for tumah. Therefore, even if he touched the fig with his tummy hands, nothing happens, because the fig never came into contact with real liquid. Rabbi Da'omer, he says the middle route. It depends. He fechba tummy. If he actually curled the saliva in his mouth, so you overturned it, he moved it around to indicate that he's about to discharge it, then it attains its own status, has enough liquid, and it can be machshir the fig for tumah. But otherwise, if he didn't turn it over, he didn't curl up the liquid in his mouth, then it doesn't have its own status. It is not is not considered to be liquid, has a din of the person's saliva, which doesn't have a din of a mashke. So what do we see here? That even liquid in one's mouth, his saliva which gathered, which separated itself, is not considered to be a separate entity unless he curled it up, he overturned it. And this seems to be inconsistent with our Mishnah, that as soon as it got separated within his mouth, that's already considered to be a maaseh, a load on Shabbos. Rabbi Yochanan Muchlefes Hashita. Indeed, Rabbi Yehuda changed his mind. He switched out of his opinion. And he indeed requires not only the right to separate itself within its mouth, but also to overturn, to curl up, which indicates that it's on its way out, and is no longer deemed as part of his body, just as he indicated the Mishnah in Kalim, unlike our Mishnah. So initially, he held the opinion of our Mishnah, then he changed his opinion, and he requires hifech, that it should curl up, it should be turned over, and completely separate from his body to be considered liquid by the halacha of tumah, and a load when it comes to Shabbos. Rish Lakish Amar, lo ilam lo yisachlef. Let's not switch things around. There's a difference between our Mishnah, which is speaking about phlegm, kichai, his phlegm, which is not just ordinary saliva. Now, as soon as that phlegm separated itself, gathered, it's already on its way out. It's not considered to be part of his entity, and therefore it's considered to be a load. And that's what Yehuda is referring to in our Mishnah, as opposed to the Mishnah in Kalim. By the fig, he's speaking about ordinary saliva. Ordinary saliva is more connected to one's body, so unless he actually turns it over in his mouth and indicates that he's spitting it out, it is not considered to be its own separate entity. Don't switch things around. Our Mishnah is speaking about his phlegm. So as soon as it gets separated, even before hifech, we consider it to be its own separate entity, and it's considered to be carrying on Shabbos. But then we learn in a brisa, which indicates otherwise, that even when it comes to saliva, you don't need to have hifech. Rabbi Doimer, kichai, if he has phlegm, v'nitlash, and it got gathered and separated, we consider that to be a load for Shabbos. My love, should we not assume that the brisa here is referring to two separate things? Kichai is one thing, his phlegm, and also the reik. So the nitlash is referring to the reik that became nitlash, and as soon as it separates itself, even before hifech, even before curling up, it is already considered to be a load. My love, reik v'nitlash, even when it comes to saliva, as soon as it got detached within his mouth, it is already considered. No, kichai v'nitlash. The brisa is specific, speaking about kichai in particular. As soon as that gathers and separates, it's considered to be a load. But when it comes to saliva, you need more than that to indicate separateness. You need hifech. So according to Rish Lakish, there's a difference between kichai, which is thick, phlegm, which is more separate than saliva. As soon as that kichai becomes separate, it has its own din. But when it comes to saliva, you need more than just nitlash. It needs to be hifech as well. Says the one, but that's not the case. But Tanya, we learned in the brisa, B'Daimer, kichai shenitlash. If his phlegm was separated in his mouth, v'chein roike shenitlash. Likewise, when it comes to saliva, as soon as it gathered, as soon as it became separate, even within his mouth, even before curling it up and turning it over, lo yahalach dalad amis achiyorik. He must refrain from walking 4 amis before he spits it out. So it's very clear that even when it comes to roik, as soon as it was separated within his mouth, it is already deemed like a separate entity. Unlike Rish Lakish. Ella, says the Gemara, you're right, machavarta, the proper approach is Kedishanin Mikara, as we answered earlier, meaning Rabbi Yechanan's approach, which was apparently Arida switched his opinion. Initially, he held like our Mishnah that when the reik became separate within the mouth, that is already considered to be a load. But then, as we see in the other Mishnah, he switched out of that opinion, and he required the reik to be turned over within the mouth, to be curled over. And only then is it considered to be detached from the body, a separate entity, and has the ability to be machshir the fig, because it's now considered to be liquid. And likewise, he should refrain from carrying it for Amisr Sarabim, as we learned in our Mishnah. So once again, when it comes to machshir l'kabel tumah, we have three shittas regarding saliva. According to Rab Meir, it's always machshir, it's always considered to be a liquid. According to Rabbi Yosi, never. According to Rabbi Yudah, if he curled it up, hifechba, then it has a din to be machshir. And likewise, Rabbi Yudah holds that you must refrain from walking in this manner for Amos and Rishus Harabim. Now it appears from the Gemara that when it comes to kichai, which is a thicker substance, in that case, as soon as it detaches itself, it's nitlash, would appear that according to Rabbi Yudah, you must refrain from walking for Amos and Rishus Harabim. Omer shlokish, kiach b'fnei rabbi. If a person discharges his phlegm in the presence of his Rebbe and repulses him, chayiv misa, he's liable to misa, Rashi says, b'dei shamayim. Shenemar kol misanai avu maves, all my haters, this is the Torah speaking, all my haters desire death, al tikru l'misanai, instead of reading l'misanai, el l'masniai, those who cause me to hate, meaning they do things that cause me to be repulsed. So here it's in front of the Rebbe. The Rebbe represents the Torah. You're doing something in front of him that causes me to be repulsed. And the result is chayv mis. Says the Gemara, but why is it the student's fault? V'ameinas honest. It's an onus. He's faultless. He must have some sort of ailment or cold that's causing him to do this. Says the Gemara, kiach v'rak kamrinan. I'm not holding him at fault for bringing up the phlegm, rather for transmitting it, for discharging it in front of his Rebbe. He should have done it off to the side, into a tissue, not in presence of his Rebbe, causing him to be repulsed. Continues the Mishnah, Lo yamad adam b'shus hayachid, v'yishte b'shus harabim. A person should refrain from standing in Rishus hayachid and leaning over, drinking from this kli in Rishus harabim, or b'shus harabim, v'yishte b'shus hayachid, nor should he stand in Rishus harabim and lean over and drink in Rishus hayachid, eleim kein hichnis, roishe v'ruboy l'makam shu shaisa, unless he's careful to lean over, to insert his head and most of his body into the other rishus where he's drinking. And the concern is because, perhaps, if he doesn't do that, he might bring the cup with the liquid back to its current location, in which case he's being moitzi, a chayfetz from one rishus to the other. V'chein begas, likewise when it comes to a wine press, as the Gemara will explain in what context these words were stated. Says the Gemara, we have a kasha. Reisha Rabbanan of a Sefer Rabbi Meir. The Reisha, meaning the previous Mishnah, which allowed a person to stand in one rishus and to handle an object in the other rishus without any concern that inadvertently perhaps he'll bring it over to his rishus, is following Shitas Rabbanan, who are not concerned about that eventuality. The Sefer Rabbi Meir and the latter part of the Mishnah, the one that we just learned, seems to be following Rabbi Meir, who is concerned about that, as we see later in the Mishnah Daf Kuf Aleph. He doesn't allow standing in one rishus, handling a key in the other rishus, for concern that inadvertently he might bring it into this rishus. This concern seems to be reflected in our Mishnah. Don't stand in one rishus and drink in the other, for concern that you might bring the kli over here. It's a bit difficult that the anonymous Mishnahs here should be inconsistent. One should be following Rab Meir, one Rabbanon. Omer Rav Yosef, there's no kasha. B'chafetzin shetzrichen loy v'divrei hakoil. When we're speaking about handling utensils which he needs, which he has use for, then all agree there's a concern, such as in our Mishnah. There's a concern that the kli with the water, which he currently needs for his drinking purposes, will cause him to inadvertently bring it over to the rishus that he's standing. So since it's a chayvet that he needs, all agree, even the Rabban agree, there is such a concern. It's a very real chashash that will bring it in to his current location. Therefore, we require that he lean over his head and most of his body into the other rishus, which will remind him that it's Shabbos and will prevent him from making this mistake. The other Mishnah was speaking about a person who's just handling random kelim that he doesn't currently need, he's not currently using. In which case the Rabbanan say, we're not concerned about inadvertent transfer. It says the Gemara, Iboilu. So the Bnei Yeshiva asked the following question. The Mishnah tells us, a person should refrain from standing in one rishus and lean over to drink in the other rishus unless he's mostly there. Karmelis mai. Does this halacha apply to a karmelis as well? So if he's standing in a karmelis and leaning over to a rishus hayachid, do we require roisha v'rubay there as well? Amar Abaye, he. It's the same thing. The same halacha that applies to Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah applies to a karmelis as well. Amar Rava, how could you say that? He gufa gzeira. Let's remember the entire concept of karmelis. Why can't we transfer from a Rosh Hashanah to a karmelis? It's a gzeira d'Rabbanan because it might lead one to transfer from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. So even direct transfer to the karmelis, should he actually transfer that kli back to the karmelis? He's merely doing an issa d'Rabbanan. It's a gzeira on account of something worse than that. Va'anam nekum. And we should get up. V'nigzor gzeira l'gzeira. Should apply gzeira on top of that gzeira. We never do that. We learn it from the pasuk of Shmarta. Mitzvah Shmarti. We're meant to erect safeguards around the Torah, but not a safeguard around that safeguard, a double safeguard. So the entire issa of transferring from a karmelis to another is merely the Rabbanan, so we shouldn't come to do issa Torah. We're going to go ahead and apply another gzeira on top of that, not allow one to stand in the karmelis and drink from the Rosh Hashanah for concern that he might bring the kli over here, and this might lead him to perhaps do the same in Rosh Hashanah. It's a double stage gzeira, and we don't do that. So what does Abaye hold? So Tosfos in Shabbos Daf Yud Aleph tells us that Abaye holds that it's one package deal. People have difficulty differentiating between different types of domains. This is a karmelis, Rosh Hashanah. So if you allow it here, even though it's only a karmelis, this might lead him to do the same when it comes to Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Hashanah, where there's a very real concern of a malacha. So therefore Tosfos says Abaye is not concerned about Rava's kasha. Well, it's a double gzeira. No, it's not a double gzeira. It's a one package deal because one leads to the next very easily. Okay. Omar Abaye says Abaye actually have a raya that this concern applies to a karmelis as well. How do I know that it applies to a karmelis? What are the last two words of the Mishnah? The same halacha applies to a wine press. Apparently we're speaking about standing in one rishus, leaning over and drinking the other. The same thing applies to a wine press. Now, what is the wine press? A rishus hayachid? Then you've just repeated the same halacha of the first part of the Mishnah. Apparently, says Abaye, this gas, this wine press, is actually a karmelis. And the Mishnah here is informing us that even when it comes to a karmelis, you must be careful. So, if you're standing in a karmelis and you're leaning over to the street, you have to make sure that you can only drink if it's Reish V'Rubai in the other rishus, because the same concerns that apply elsewhere applies to a karmelis as well. V'Rava Amar, no. These two words of the Mishnah V'chein Begas are unconnected to our discussion at hand. Linear Maser, it's actually pertaining to an entirely different context. The halacha is of Meiser. V'chein Rav Sheshes, V'chein Begas Linear Meiser. Likewise, Rav Sheshes said that these words V'chein Begas apply to Maser. In what way? This non, as we learned in the Mishnah, Shoysin Alagas. We know that a person could partake with a achilas, in an achilas arai or shtiyos arai, a informal meal, informal snack, informal drink, from tevel, something where the tumah and ma'aser would not yet separated. He can take it and drink an achilas arai, a shtiyos arai, and not be obligated in tumah and ma'aser. So what happens if there's wine in the wine press? Says the Mishnah, shoysin alagas. A person is allowed to drink on top of the wine press, because whatever he drinks there is considered to be a shtiyos arai, an informal, a snack drink. Even if he diluted the wine with hot or cold water, upater, and he'll be exempt from ma'aser as long as he's sitting on the wine press, which makes it an informal drink. Divrei Rav Meir, so according to Rav Meir, he needs to be on the wine press, and that's what our Mishnah is referring to. You want to drink and be pater from ma'aser? Make sure you're in the wine press, or at least your head and most of your body is positioned over the wine press, in which case whatever you drink there, even diluted wine, diluted with hot, with cold, it's irrelevant. It's considered to be an informal drink, and you're pater from ma'aser. So that's Rava's pshat now Mishnah. So the V'chein Begas is in reference to ma'aser, unrelated to Hilchos Shabbos. So that's the first sheet of Rav Meir. Rav Lezer Tzaddik Machayev, he says, drinking in this manner, even on the wine press, once you diluted out wine, it has a din of kva. You've granted prominence to that wine. You've diluted it. You've turned it into a formal drinking experience, and it's unconnected anymore to the wine press. You chayiv in trumas and ma'ases. Middle root, depends. Allah cham and chayiv. If you diluted the wine with hot water, then he's chayv maser before he drinks it. If he diluted it merely with cold water, he's potter. Why? Because when he diluted it with cold, he still has the ability to pour it back into the wine press. In which case, we don't consider it to be a drink of permanence, a prominent drinking experience, because he can still pour it back. He's just taking a sip. For all he knows, he'll go pour back the rest. So it doesn't have prominence, doesn't have a status of a formal drink, and therefore it's potter from maser. But if he diluted it with hot water, in that case he doesn't have the ability to spill it back anymore, because it's going to ruin the wine in the wine press. So in that case, the fact that he diluted it and separated from the rest of the wine, he granted prominence to this diluted wine. It's considered to be its own entity. It it gains stature. It's viewed as a permanent drink, not just as a snack, and his chayv ma'aser. Okay, so in summary, when it comes to drinking wine of tevel, we have three shittas. Rameya says, if you're on the wine press, you're okay. According to Eliezer Tzaddik, as soon as you diluted that wine, it gives it prominence and is no longer considered to be a snack and an informal drink. According to Chachamim, it depends if you have the ability to spill it back in the wine press or not. And getting back to our Mishnah, one should refrain from standing in one rishus and drink from the other unless you're mostly in that rishus. The Gemara tells us, we're speaking about chafetzim atzrichan, he needs this utensil with the drink inside. Therefore, even the Rabban would agree there's a concern about inadvertent transfer. So unless you're Rosh Ruba in the new rishus, you shouldn't be drinking. Now, the last two words of the Mishnah, v'chein bagas, is referring to either the halacha of a Carmelist, that this same concern applies to a Carmelist, that's a Bai's approach, whereas Rabbah said it's unrelated to our discussion. It's concerning the halacha of Maser, that a person must find himself either completely or mostly on that wine press, in accordance with Shittas Reb Meir, to allow him to drink an informal drink without separating Mas. Continues the Mishnah. Koilit Adam min hamaschila lematam yutfach. So a bit of an introduction is at place here. Rashi explains as follows. They used to have the home with a flat roof. How would they divert the rainwater off the roof? They would smear the roof with some cement, some waterproofing, perhaps at a slight slant, a slight angle, so that the water trickles into the eave trough. So Rashi says it was arranged like this. You had the roof with a wall, and you had some small outlets coming from that roof over to the mazchila. The mazchila was a board running alongside that wall. Right? So you have the wall, and you have the mazchila running alongside the wall. And the mazchila was generally within 3 tefachim of the rooftop. So what was the purpose, what was the function of the mazchila? Simple, to divert the water coming from the outlets off the roof. They would trickle onto the mazchila, which would divert that water away from the house. So the water runs along the mazchila, on the top surface of the mazchila, all the way away from the home. So that's the mazchila, which is generally within 3 tefachim to the rooftop, and therefore is regarded like a Rosh Hashanah. That's the mazchila. Then we have the tzinar, which was a pipe, a downspout, coming from the roof, running down along that wall, and with an outlet on the bottom. Now this tzinar, the opening of the tzinar at least, was at a distance from the roof, was beyond the roof, was beyond 3 tefachim, and therefore is not considered to be part of that roof, is not considered to be a Rosh Hashanah. So the question here is regarding collecting water from any of these eave troughs, from the maschila, from the tzinar. Can one do so? Let's say he's standing in Rosh Hashanah below. Can he pick up his kli to collect some water, which is shooting out of these eave troughs? It says the Mishnah depends. Koilet adam min hamaschila lamatam yitfachim. So even if this maschila is within 10 tefachim to the surface of Rosh Hashanah, he can't go ahead and take his kli and affix it to the maschila, put it right next to the maschila to collect water, because the maschila is Rosh Hashanah. As we explained, it's within 3 tefachim to the rooftop. So by drawing the water directly from that maschila, he's taking it from the Rosh Hashanah into Rosh Hashanah. Rather, what can he do? Says the Mishnah, Koilet Adam. He can go ahead and intercept the airborne water. So the water that shoots out of the maschila and is right now in middle of the air, that he can go ahead and collect, because that is simply taking from the air, not from a Rosh Hashanah. So Koilet Adam in a maschila, he can go ahead and intercept the airborne water coming out of the maschila. Lamati mitfachim, when the maschila is even within 10 tfachim the Shus Rabbim, because it has a din of Rosh Hashanah since it's so close to the rooftop. Uminat sinar, however, when it comes to collecting water from that pipe, that long pipe, coming off the roof, where the opening of the pipe below is so far from that roof, beyond 3 tfachim, it's not considered Rosh Hashanah. It's considered to be a makam tur. So in that case, mikol makam shaisa, he can drink in any manner in which he sees fit. He can actually affix his mouth or his kli to the opening of that sinar, because he's simply drawing water from a makam tur. Says the Gemara, koilet in avol mitzarer floy. So the Mishnah began with the maschila that he could only snatch that airborne water coming out of the maschila, but he can't actually be mitzaref, put his kli right directly to the maschila. My time of why? What's wrong with doing that? Amar Rav Nachman, hacha b'maschila pachas megimel samach l'gag askinan. We're speaking about this board, this eave trough, which is situated within 3 tfachim to the rooftop. The chal pachas megimel samach l'gag gag dami. In which case, it has a din like the gag, because if it's within 3 to the roof, it has a din of the rooftop, which is a shusayach. Tani nami hachi, we learn likewise in a brisa. We're going to see in the brisa as well that within 3 tfachim to the rooftop is considered to be a Rosh Hashanah, and therefore the only way you can collect that water is if it's airborne. But if you're actually getting close to that surface, you're affixing your kli to the surface, it's considered as though you're taking from that surface. The brisa is actually going to speak about a different type of case. We have 2 neighbors, 2 Rosh Hashanahs. You have one roof and a roof next to it, 10 tfachim in elevation. They didn't make an eruv, so you can't transfer one to the other. It says the brisa, a person can stand in Rosh Hashanah in his own territory, and lifts his hand 10 tfachim above, near his friend's rooftop, within 3 tfachim of his friend's rooftop, the koilet. The only thing he can do is collect that water mid-air. He can go ahead and intercept the airborne water, provided he doesn't actually put his kli directly touching that rooftop, in which case it would be considered like he's drawing water from that rooftop. So if he does so within 3 tfachim of the rooftop, he actually takes his kli and connects it to the surface of the house next door. If it's within 3 tfachim to the rooftop, it's considered as though he's drawing from the rooftop itself. So we see this concept in this price. The only thing you can do is intercept the airborne water. It would seem that even if it's within 3 tfachim of the rooftop, since he's not actually drawing from a surface, he's just taken from mid-air, this concern doesn't apply. Tani idach, we learned a similar brisa as well. Layamad adam b'shasayachid v'yagbia yodid l'malam asar tfachim. Person shouldn't stand in his rishasayachid and lift his hand beyond 10 tfachim lefachis megimel samach legag, to within 3 tfachim of his friend's neighbor, b'yitzaref, and affix his kli to the surface to collect water in that manner, because it is as though he's collecting from the roof itself, and he's transferring from one Rosh Hashanah to the other, which he can't do. Aval koil to v'shoisa, but he can go ahead and intercept that water, that airborne water, and drink freely. So once again, the maschila, which is within 3 tfachim to that rooftop, right? You have the roof, you have the wall, you have the maschila running alongside that wall, which is meant to drain the water coming off that roof. So that maschila is within 3 tfachim to the rooftop. The only thing you can do to collect water coming out of the maschila is to keep your kli at a distance from that maschila, to have the water shoot into your kli, intercept that airborne water. But to actually place the kli adjacent to the maschila and collect it directly, you can't do that, because it is considered as though you're taking from the rooftop, which is a Rosh Hashanah, down to where you're standing, which is a Rosh Hashanah. However, the Mishnah told us, Minat Sinar, Mikol Makam Shais. The Sinar is a different type of thing. It's the pipe coming off the roof, which is extending beyond 3 tfachim. In that case, there are no restrictions. You can drink freely directly from that tzinor, which is a makom p'tur. Tana, however, we learned in a brayso, im yesh b'tzinor dal dalit asur. If the surface of that pipe is actually large, it's 4 by 4 tfachim, then you cannot go ahead and directly take water from there. Why? Because even though it's within 10 tfachim of Rishus Harabim, let's remember that a surface area of 4 by 4, even if it's below 10, is a karmelis. It says always taking from one rishus to the other, from the tzina which is deemed a karmelis to the Rishus Harabim. So in that case, he's like the maschila. He can only go ahead and intercept airborne water. He can't actually directly take water from the tzina itself. Now Rashi points out another aspect here, that the Mishnah only allowed direct drawing from the tzina if it is within 10 tfachim to Rishus Harabim. Why? Because if it's above 10 tfachim, there's always a concern that perhaps the tzina will have a large surface space, a 4 by 4. And let's remember, a 4 by 4 surface area above 10 tfachim is a Rishus HaYachid. So that can result in a Issa Deiraisa. Therefore, Rashi says that the Mishnah is specifically allowing only if it's below 10 tfachim. In which case, when the tzina is below 10, it doesn't have a surface area of 4 by 4, so it's a makom p'tur. So you can go ahead and directly access the tzina, take water directly without any concern. And if it is 4 by 4, then it's a karmelis, he must refrain. But should the tzina be above 10 tfachim, says Rashi, there's a chance that he might confuse matters. He'll allow drawing directly from the tzina even if it has 4 by 4 tfachim. And in that case, if it's 4 by 4 above 10, he actually did a malacha deraisa. So since it can lead to even a possibility of a malacha deraisa, we don't allow it. So once again, if the tzina is above 10 tfachim, then he can never draw directly from the tzina. We're concerned that perhaps it's going to have a surface of 4 by 4, which will be a Rishus HaYachid, which will result in malacha deraisa. So the only thing he can do is intercept from the airborne water. However, if the tzina is below 10, and that is the discussion now, Mishnah, the tzina is below 10, then it can never result in an Issa Deraisa, because below 10 can never become a Rishus HaYachid. So you can go ahead and draw directly from the tzina, provided that it doesn't have a surface of 4 by 4, because if it does, then it will be a karmelis. But at worst case, it can only become a karmelis. So as long as you make sure it's not a karmelis, you'll have to draw directly. So in summary, regarding intercepting airborne water, that you can do when it comes to maschila or a tzina. Regarding direct drawing from the pipe itself, so maschila you cannot, because it's within 3 tfachim to the roof, it's considered Rishus HaYachid. When it comes to the tzina, it depends. If it's small inside, it doesn't have a surface of 4 by 4, in which case it's not a karmelis, and it's below 10 tfachim, in which case it can never result in a Issa Deraisa, because it can never be a Rishus HaYachid. So as long as it fits that criteria, you can go ahead and be mitzaref, meaning you can place your kli right next to the tzinar and draw directly from the tzinar to Rishus Harabim without any concern. Continues the Mishnah. By Rishus Harabim, if you have a water hole in Rishus Harabim, v'chol yasoi gavoya yutfachim, and it has a ridge. The chulya is the ridge built around the bar, which is 10 tfachim in height. Chalain shal gabav mimalin hemenu b'Shabbos. So if there's a window positioned above that bar, so you have a bar in Rishus Harabim with a home built right next to it, and there's a window situated above the bar. So if the bar has a chulya which is 10 tfachim high, that allows this fellow living in the home to send his pail down into the bar, draw some water back through his window. Because his window is a Rishus HaYachid, and so is the bar. He's merely transferring from one Rishus HaYachid to the other. Likewise, Ashpa b'Rishus Harabim, Gavoya Yutfachim, we have a heap of trash in Rishus Harabim 10 tfachim high, which is considered Rishus HaYachid. Chalain shal gabav, the window which is situated above it, Sheifchin l'soichamayim b'Shabbos, they can go ahead and pour some waste, some water, from the window over to the Ashpa, which as well is considered Rishus HaYachid. But Mayaskinan, what are we speaking about? Where is this bar situated? Meaning, we have a bar, a home next to it. Is there some space in between? Is there Rishus Harabim between the bar and the home? Are we speaking that the bar is within close proximity to the home, and there's no Rishus Harabim in between? There's maybe 3 tfachim, which is not considered Rishus Harabim. If that's the case, Lama li chulya yud. Why does the Mishnah describe the bar as having this ridge 10 tefachim high? Why is that necessary? Look, the home and the bar are so close to each other. There's no Rosh Hashanah intersecting. So even if there's no ridge 10 tefachim high, but the bar is 10 tefachim deep, is Rosh Hashanah. The chaloin above it is Rosh Hashanah. Why can't you transfer from one to the other? Through the slight airspace in between, which is a Malkam Tur. Says the Gemara, Omar Rav Huna, indeed, this bar was situated at a distance of 4 tefachim from that home, and that 4 tefach space constitutes a Rishus HaRabim. So the only way he can go and transfer from the home to the bar is if he makes sure to lift his pail beyond the 10 tefach reach of Rishus HaRabim. So if it's above 10 tefach, it's a makam tur, and that allows him to transfer from the chaloin through the makam tur to the bar, which is Rishus HaRabim. That explains the Mishnah. So this is only allowed because there's a ridge 10 tefachim high, which necessitates lifting that pail above the chulya, above 10 tefachim, into the makam tur, into the bar, through the makam tur into the bar. But if there wouldn't be this high ridge, then it will be problematic, because when he transfers from his window down to the bar, he's putting his pail through the airspace of Rishus HaRabim, within 10 tefachim of the street. He's going to be transferring from his chaloin, which is Rishus HaYachid, over to the bar, which as well is Rishus HaYachid, through the airspace of Rishus HaRabim. So that explains the Mishnah. This ridge needs to be 10 tefachim high, which will obligate him to go ahead and pick up his pail, send it from his window over the ridge, which is now a makam tur, because it's beyond the 10 tefach reach of Rishus HaRabim, into the bar, which is okay. For Rabbi Yochanan Amar, he has a different approach. Even if the bar is situated very close to the window, why does the Mishnah speak about a ridge which is 10 tefachim high? Why is that necessary? Why can't he go ahead and directly access the bar without this high ridge? Says the Gemara, you're right. It's not really necessary for that allowance. But the Mishnah here is coming to inform us another halacha. The bar v'chul yasai mitzarfen l'asara. The Mishnah is simply coming to inform us another concept, that not only if you have a pit which is 10 tefachim below the surface, is that considered Rishus HaYachid, even if the bar is merely 5 tefach below surface, and it has a chulya built around the ridge, around the edge, which has a 5 tefach elevation. So the depth and the height combine with each other to create an enclosure, a surface which is 10 tefach deep, which has a din of Rishus HaYachid, and that's the point of the Mishnah. So again, the Mishnah describes this fellow using the bar through his window, and the Mishnah tells us that the chulya is 10 tefach high. We have 2 approaches. Either because the bar was at a distance from the home, in which case he has to make sure to throw his pail up in the air, up high in the air, beyond the Rishus HaRabim, and the fact that there's a ridge around the bar that necessitates the high throwing and addresses the Rishus HaRabim problem. That's one approach. The Mishnah is simply coming to inform us that the depth of the bar, together with the height of the chulya, can create that enclosure within, which is Rishus HaYachid. Ash for Rishus HaRabim, likewise, if you have a heap of trash, which is 10 tefachim high, you can go ahead and access it on Shabbos from your window, because the trash 10 tefach high is Rishus HaYachid. We're not concerned that perhaps part of the trash will be removed, which will diminish its height, and he'll continue using it even though it's no longer Rishus HaYachid. Perhaps it's a karmelis, perhaps it's Rishus HaRabim. He's going to be transferring from his home to the Rishus HaRabim. Why are we concerned about that? V'harav barav Ada, Amar Yitzchak. Didn't Rav and Barav Ada tell us the name of Yitzchak? There was a story with a certain alleyway which was open to Rishus HaRabim, and it had one solid mechitza. What about the other 2 mechitzas? As follows: Shetzidei echad kol hayam. One side of the alleyway culminated at sea, and there was a seawall there creating a mechitza. V'tzidei echad kol ha'ashpa, and the other side culminated at a heap of trash, which created a mechitza. The question is, can we carry in this mavi? Uba masil fnei Rebbe, and the story was presented to Rebbe. V'lo yomar boy lo yisur liheter. He didn't rule stringently nor leniently. He didn't want to say isser or heter. Why? Heter lo yomar boy. He didn't want to allow it. We're concerned that perhaps, right now there are mechitzas, but perhaps in the future the garbage will be removed and the mechitza will no longer exist. Or v'yal hayam sirtain, perhaps the sea will kick up some refuse which will obliterate that mechitza. Therefore he was concerned, he didn't want to allow it. On the other hand, Issa loy amabai, he didn't say that it's asa. The hakayim mechitzas, because currently there are mechitzas here. So in any case, we see there's a concern about removal of ashpa. Like kasha, the answer is, it depends. Hada yachid, hada rabbin. When it's a privately accessed trash, here there's a concern that perhaps the private owner will remove his trash. And that indeed was the case with the mavoi that came to Rebbe. Whereas in our Mishnah, which is rabbim, it's a publicly used trash heap, where there's no concern that things will change too quickly. Let's assume the way it is now, it's 10 tefachim high, will remain for long term as well. Continues the Mishnah, Elon, show you mesach al haaretz. You have a wide tree with wide branches, hovering over the area and creating this canopy. If the branches reach to within 3 tefachim to the ground below, metaltalum tachtav, you can carry within this area, is considered to be a proper mechitza. Another halacha, sherasha gvoyim min haaretz gimel tefachim. The roots of this tree are 3 tefachim above the ground. They are considered like a tree now, because it's beyond 3 tefachim, and one is not meant to use a tree on Shabbos. Might pull off a branch. Lo yishav alein. You shouldn't sit on these roots. Amar Rav Huna, Bereida Bishua. Getting back to this wide tree, a metaltalum boy yasser beisasayim. The only way you can carry freely underneath that tree is if it's 2 sa in size or less. That's the shear given to an enclosure, which was a non-residential enclosure. So if it's within 2 sa, has that personal flavor to it, and we allow carrying within it. But if it's beyond that shear, it's too big, it's considered to be like an open, unenclosed area. Now we're speaking about a tree that perhaps he even planted for the sake of creating this canopy, to create this enclosure. It's a hukaf ledira. It was enclosed for the sake of residency. So why this limitation? Why this halacha? My time of why? Yes, certainly he created to make this enclosure, to create this shelter, but it's a dira. It's a place of residence which is servicing an open area. Says Rashi on the top line, it's not intended for constant use, constant dwelling. It's meant to provide shelter for the watchmen. They come to watch the fields. They sit inside this tree, protected from the elements, to keep an eye on the field. So it's a residency which is really servicing the outdoors. Says the Gemara, whenever we have a dira, a place of residence which is really serving an avir area, an open area, you can only carry if it's 2 sa in size or less, because it has a din of a non-residential enclosure. Okay, time for a brief chazara of today's daf. We began with the halacha of Rava, that if a person standing in Shus Rabbim takes a chayfetz and carries it 4 amos, even if he lifts it above himself through a makam tur, he's chayev chatos. And we were looking for a raya or kasha from our Mishnah, and we didn't really conclude one way or the other. We learned that if a person is standing in one rishus and he passes water or he spits into the other rishus, he's chayav chatas. The fact that he needs it to be done in this way gives prominence to the makaim of the akira. It is regarded like the liquid was lifted off a prominently sized area 4 by 4 tefachim. Now if he's standing in one rishus and the place of the exit of that liquid, the pia amma, is sitting in Shus Rabbim, do we consider it to be a malacha or not? We leave it unresolved. And the Gemara concluded that, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the only time saliva has the ability to be considered mashkin, to make something susceptible to tumah, or to require a person to refrain from walking with it 4 amos in Shus Rabbim, is if it's separated in his mouth, and also hifech, he went ahead and curled it, he overturned it, which detached it from his body, so to speak, and gives it its own prominence, its own chashivas, has a din like a masoy on Shabbos. We learned that a person is supposed to present himself properly in front of his Rebbe, not to go ahead and cause him to be repulsed. We learned that a person who's standing in one rishus and would like to drink something in the other must make sure that his head and most of his body is leaning over, for concern that he might go ahead and bring the kli back with him. The Mishnah included the word b'chein bagas. Abaye says that's coming to teach us that the same concern applies to a karmelis, and Rava says no, it pertains to an entirely different halacha of drinking wine on the wine press. We learned that a person can go ahead and intercept airborne water from either the maschila or from the tzina without concern. Being mitzaref, meaning directly drawing from maschila, is asr because it's too close to the roof. It's considered like a shesayachet. But he can go ahead and do that from the tzina, which is situated at a distance from the roof, provided it's small in size, less than 4 tfachim, it's below 10 tfachim, in which case it's a makom tur. We learned that the depth of the bur and the height of the ridge are mitzaref to asar tfachim, and the enclosure underneath that tree needs to be 2 saw less because it's a non-residential enclosure.